In the sleepy town of Havenridge, a place steeped in old-world charm and whispered legends, 17-year-old Eliza wandered through the woods one crisp autumn afternoon. She often found solace beneath the towering trees, away from the prying eyes of her peers and the stifling monotony of small-town life. Her footsteps rustled against a carpet of amber and crimson leaves as she meandered deeper into the forest than she ever had before. The air grew cooler, the sunlight dimmer, as though the trees themselves were conspiring to keep this part of the woods a secret. Eliza stumbled upon a moss-covered stone archway, almost entirely hidden by creeping ivy. Beyond it lay a clearing bathed in an eerie, golden light. In the center of the clearing rested a peculiar object, an ornate wooden box, weathered but intricately carved with symbols she couldn't decipher. Despite its apparent age, the box radiated a strange allure, as though it had been waiting for her. Compelled by a mix of curiosity and an inexplicable sense of destiny, Eliza approached the box. Her fingers traced its carvings, feeling the grooves of the mysterious symbols. The box was surprisingly light when she picked it up, and as she did, the air seemed to hum with an unearthly energy. A small latch held the lid shut, and though common sense told her to leave it be, she couldn't resist opening it. Inside, she found a single piece of parchment, aged and brittle, with instructions written in elegant, looping handwriting. To the finder of this box, your wishes shall be granted, but heed these rules, speak clearly, wish wisely, and never make more than 3. Break these rules, and you shall pay a price. Eliza's heart raced. Wishes? The idea seemed absurd, like something out of a fairy tale. But what if it was real? What if this box had the power to change her life, to fulfill dreams she had long since buried beneath layers of frustration and self-doubt? She clutched the box tightly and hurried home, her mind swirling with possibilities. Back in the sanctuary of her bedroom, Eliza placed the box on her desk and sat before it. Her hands trembled as she contemplated her first wish. She thought of her father, who had left years ago without explanation, and her mother, who had been drowning in sorrow ever since. Eliza wanted nothing more than to see her family whole again. "I wish my dad would come back to us," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The box vibrated slightly, and a faint golden glow seeped through the carvings. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Eliza waited, her heart pounding, but nothing seemed to happen. Disappointed, she assumed it had been a cruel joke. But that night, as she lay in bed, she heard the front door creak open. She rushed downstairs and froze at the sight of her father standing in the entryway. His face was pale, his eyes hollow, but it was unmistakably him. "Dad," she stammered. He nodded, his lips curling into a weak smile. Tears streamed down her face as she embraced him, but something felt off. His skin was cold, and his movements were stiff, almost mechanical. Still, her wish had come true, hadn't it? She convinced herself that he just needed time to readjust. Over the following days, Eliza noticed more peculiarities. Her father spoke in short, clipped sentences, as though struggling to remember how to communicate. He avoided sunlight and mirrors, and the family dog growled whenever he entered the room. Her mother, however, seemed oblivious, consumed by joy at his return. Eliza's unease grew, but she couldn't bring herself to confront the truth. Instead, she turned to the box again, desperate to fix what she now suspected had gone wrong. "I wish my dad was exactly as he was before he left," she said, enunciating each word carefully. The box glowed brighter this time, and a low hum filled the room. When the light faded, her father seemed different. His movements were more natural, his speech fluid. He laughed and told stories like he used to, and even the dog stopped growling. For a fleeting moment, Eliza allowed herself to believe everything was back to normal. But normalcy was an illusion. Her father began asking strange questions, probing her about the box and how she had wished for him. His curiosity bordered on obsession, and his once warm demeanor turned calculating. One evening, she caught him rummaging through her room, his hands trembling as he tried to open the box. "What are you doing?" she demanded, snatching it away. His eyes bored into hers, filled with a hunger that frightened her. "You don't understand what you found," Eliza. This box is more powerful than you can imagine. You need to give it to me. No, she said firmly, clutching it to her chest. It's mine. That night, unable to shake the feeling that her father was no longer who he claimed to be, Eliza decided to hide the box. She buried it beneath a loose floorboard in her closet, hoping it would be safe there. But even as she drifted into a restless sleep, she couldn't escape the nagging thought that she had made a terrible mistake. The following morning, her father was gone. Her mother was inconsolable, wailing that he had vanished without a trace. Eliza's guilt weighed heavily on her, but she dared not use the box again. She had already made 2 wishes, and the rules were clear, no more than 3. Breaking the rules came with a price she wasn't willing to pay. Days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere in their home grew heavier. Eliza's mother fell into a deep depression, and Eliza herself became withdrawn, consumed by paranoia. She began to hear whispers in the dead of night, voices calling her name. Shadows moved where they shouldn't, and the once familiar creaks of the house now sounded ominous. One evening, as the wind howled outside and rain lashed against her window, Eliza's resolve crumbled. She retrieved the box from its hiding place, her hands shaking. She knew she was playing with forces beyond her understanding, but desperation clouded her judgment. I wish for everything to go back to the way it was before I found this box, she said, her voice cracking. The box's glow was blinding this time, and the hum became a deafening roar. Then, silence. For a moment, Eliza thought the wish had worked. But when she opened her eyes, she was no longer in her bedroom. She stood in the middle of the clearing where she had first found the box. The archway loomed behind her, and the air was thick with an oppressive energy. A voice echoed around her, low and sinister. You have broken the rules. Eliza turned, but there was no one there. I just wanted to fix things, she pleaded. Please, I didn't mean to. Intent matters not, the voice interrupted. You have made 3 wishes and disrupted the balance. Now, the price must be paid. Before she could respond, the ground beneath her began to tremble. The box floated from her hands, suspended in midair, its carvings glowing an ominous red. A shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, its form shifting and writhing as though it were made of smoke. What are you? Eliza whispered, backing away. I am the guardian of the box, the figure said. Its power is not meant for the reckless or the greedy. You were warned, yet you ignored the rules. Tears streamed down Eliza's face as she fell to her knees. I'm sorry. Please, I'll do anything to make it right. The guardian's voice softened, but its presence remained imposing. There is one way to atone. You must become the box's new keeper, bound to it for eternity. Only then will the balance be restored. Eliza's heart sank. The thought of being trapped forever, tied to a cursed object, was unbearable. But what choice did she have? She nodded slowly, her voice barely a whisper. I accept. The guardian extended a shadowy hand, and as Eliza reached out to take it, a searing pain shot through her entire being. The world around her dissolved into darkness, and when she awoke, she found herself back in the clearing. The box sat before her, unchanged, as though nothing had happened. But she knew better. From that day forward, Eliza was no longer an ordinary girl. She was the box's guardian, cursed to watch over it and ensure its power was never misused again. She became a ghostly figure, haunting the woods of Havenridge, her story passed down as a cautionary tale. And though the box's allure remained, its rules and consequences were now etched into the very fabric of its existence, waiting for the next unwitting soul to uncover its secrets.